Hello, in today's video, I waste some Tamiya cement, I paint a metal door blue, I weather some rusty pipes, and I make dirt look more dirty, all so that I can make a cool looking basement to this factory. Speaking of the factory, I used some XPS foam sheets to create the rough shape of the building. I wanted the factory to be made out of a mixture of concrete and bricks, so I went about scribing the brick lines. In this scale, it should be around every 2 millimeters. This is 1/35th scale. I completely recommend having some background video or some kind of podcast you like listening to while scribing the bricks, because this does take quite a bit of time. And using that toothpick to help round out the edges of the bricks, just to help get rid of that sharp 90-degree edge. And for added little texture here and there, you could remove some of the bricks or push some of the bricks further in so that it's not such a uniform surface. To give the concrete portions of the building a little bit of extra texture, I used a mixture between a brush and an aluminum foil ball and gently rubbed it across the surface. Happy with the progress on the walls, I moved on to making the windows and doors. For this, again, I just used some more styrene. I built the windows in the center of the frames just so I could have something to put up against the back of them, because I wanted to have a painted acrylic piece for the glass. With the windows and doors now in place, I realized I wanted to add a little bit extra texture to the concrete portions, so I used some all-purpose joint compound. I just loaded some up with my brush and stippled it on the surface, not really caring for full coverage, but just trying to get some more texture. I went back over those high spots with that plastic scraper just to kind of bring it down a little bit and add some more smears and streaks just to give it that more weathered, handmade look. Then gave it a thick coat of primer. Be careful if you do use primer out of a can, just because it will absolutely eat through this foam, but it is possible to do it if you hold the can far enough away. With it primed, I then base coated the bricks in a yellowish tan color. For variation, I used a rusty brown color for some bricks, again just picking out random bricks here and there. Luckily, bricks come in so very many different colors, so you really can go hog wild with that. Since I already had that rusty color on my brush, I went over all of the metal pieces. I wanted to paint them in a reverse kind of order by going with the rusty color first and then applying the paint over it, almost like a reverse chipping method like Night Shift says. So I whipped up a light blue color and got it to it. Again, I'm trying to cover most of that brown rust color, so I just haphazardly applied it and stippled it all over the surface. I'm going for like 90-95% coverage, really just want to let some of that show through underneath. I then came back with a lighter blue color and just emphasized some more of those chips by painting the undersides of them, just to kind of emphasize where the light would catch here and there. From there, I took out some enamel rust effects and then just worked it around with some mineral spirits. With the metal bits done, I moved back to the brickwork. I really wanted to add some mortar lines, so I grabbed some more of that all-purpose joint compound. And to do that, I just put it on the bricks and I spread it and trying to really push it into the brickwork. Don't really want to cover up all that paintwork we did, so again, trying to get it in between the bricks. Once it was dry, I used a wet toothbrush to help just clean it off and took a couple passes, but eventually it got there. I really wanted something else on the surface to accompany the building, so I went about creating this elevated pipe structure. I started off by using a rectangular piece of XPS foam, and I found these really cool I-beam styrene pieces, and I just stuck it in the top. After creating a little support structure, I cut these 2 pieces of acrylic pipe, which I then glued to the support structure. Feeling it needed a little bit extra, I also attached some pipes to kind of help hold it on there and finished out the supporting structure. I've had my eye on AK Interactive's concrete terrain paste for a while now, and I felt this would be a good test case for it, so I picked some up. Once it was dry, I gave it a coat of primer, and then went about base coating the pipes. Considering my last build where I had to cover up all of that rusty green paint job I did on the cabin roof, I really wanted to do it again and now leave it exposed, so I followed the same kind of paint scheme. Gave it that green base coat, lightened it up with a second green color, and then made some superficial chips using that lighter green color again, just to help give it that three-dimensional chipping effect. And then on the center of those chips, I used a gray color to help make it look like steel. Following that up with some streaking rust effects. And then using some winter streaking grime to emphasize some like seams or joints in the pipes themselves. Now with the pipes and building done, they needed something to sit on, so I went about creating a base. I used my standard method of using blown attic insulation for my ground texture, and then applied some brown paint over it. I created some stairs going down to the basement, and used some of that all-purpose joint compound as the concrete texture. Using some more styrene, I whipped together a quick little door just to get down to that basement area. Following this up with some glue and sifting on some dirt via the paint can and the stocking method. Once it was dry, it was onto some static grass. I really only wanted some of the grass to be built up in this small little right hand corner. I'm just applying the glue haphazardly and randomly, it really doesn't matter, I kind of just want patches to be shown here and there. And I'm using some 7mm grass, applied via a static grass applicator. I applied it in over 3 to 4 layers just to kind of get that kind of thick coverage I was looking for. And as for the color, you'll see in a minute it really won't matter because I will be painting it all black. See what I mean? Now that it's primed black, I wanted to paint the grass first. This way it's also a lot easier to clean up the overspray, so I started with my darkest green color and progressively added more and more lighter green to it, just trying to hit the random spots here and there and not be too uniform about it. Then it was time to paint the earthwork. For that I just used one color, which was just Tamiya Buff. To give the dirtwork some variety, I'm going to use some enamel effects in a little bit. So I'm mainly just trying to focus on getting as much coverage as I can, while avoiding spraying over the grass. Since I was done with the airbrush, I then glued the buildings back onto the top. I wanted to add a overhang or a little cover for the stairs going down to the basement, so I bent some styrene pieces and glued a styrene card to the top of it. Same goes for the front of the building. I really wanted to have this kind of raggedy looking overhang or awning, so I created them using some more styrene. And then it was on to painting. For this I figured that they were just going to be exposed pieces of metal, so I went with a rusty look. For that I just used my darkest rusty color and then progressively got lighter and lighter using the sponge chipping method, focusing it on fewer and fewer spots just to kind of show that age. And then I moved back to the dirt work and then add some of that variation that I mentioned earlier. For this I'm just using 3 colors, a light, a medium, and a dark color, focusing the darkest of the colors closest towards the grass and in spots here and there in the main dirt area, and then blending between them using some of that medium tone, again here and there, just randomly, following it up with the lightest tones in the more trafficked, driest parts. I then blended between them using just again some mineral spirits and blending it all together while each paint was wet, using that wet blending technique. This is very much a back and forth kind of a process, so if you don't like the way it looks, you can add more. If you don't like the way it looks, you can add a whole bunch of mineral spirit and remove some of it. It was honestly cool seeing how effective those 3 colors could be to help change the tone so much. Oh yeah, while I was painting those awnings and those overhangs, I also had painted the door to the basement. Speaking of which, what's actually in there? A big open room full of opportunity, that's what it is. I got the idea of putting in a liminal space from SharpHorizon's YouTube channel. It's a newer channel, it makes some really cool stuff, and I thought it would be a really cool idea to incorporate that idea into my build. So thanks again for the idea, man. Links to that video will be in the description and in the pinned comment below. So how to make a liminal space? You need a mirror and you need a one-way mirror and some lights and something in between those 2 mirrors. And for that I just use a simple little pillar so I could create this infinite looking hallway. But as for the rest of it, it is far too clean to be a dungy basement, so I use some streaking grime. Following this up with some more streaking grime on the ground, kind of emphasize some spills and some oil stains. There, a little bit dirtier. Now we need to add some little bits to make it look lived in. So I 3D printed up some stuff and painted it and just placed it haphazardly all about. I threw together a quick and dirty roof to help fill the space, poke some holes so I can add some LEDs, again, crucial for that liminal space, and then sealed that all up. While I was printing all those little bits and bobs for the basement, I then also printed off 2 figures. I started them off with a black coat of primer and followed that up with a zenithal prime using some white ink sprayed from the top down. I then made a green color and thinned it down to the consistency of a glaze and glazed it onto the pants. Using 1 or 2 passes just to get that kind of coverage I was looking for. Using a darker green color, I then painted the t-shirt. Once the pants were dry, I added a quick highlight pass just to all those raised bits. And then to make some camouflage pants, I just speckled on a lighter green color. Following this up with some skin tones. And all of his equipment. And there, you got 2 semi-close looking people, I guess. I then placed them and gave the sides of the diorama a black coat of paint, and I called it good. So yeah, another one down. Thank you guys so much for watching. I know last time I said I was going to focus on doing some smaller stuff. My bad. I do plan on doing that though, so hopefully I can get something turned around here pretty quick. But if you like what you saw and you want to see some more, click here. And to the rest of you guys, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.